Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Gig Harbor City Council study session of Thursday, July 28th. The time is 2:02 p.m. and I will turn it over to our Assistant City Clerk, Tiffany Element, for a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Barber.
She's excused.
Councilmember Denson.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
It's also excused.
Councilmember Likens. Here. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Storsett.
Here.
And Councilmember Wook.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. We will move right on to our first discussion item, which is our climate change comprehensive plan update. And this is a report by our senior planner, Roxy Robles. And you're muted, I think.
Okay, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, everyone. This is going to be a fairly brief update on the Climate Change Comprehensive Plan Amendment project. I gave a presentation a few months ago about the beginning of this project. So at that time, we were at a point where climate change wasn't in our comprehensive plan. We had no goals or policies related to climate change or climate change mitigation. That is still the case, but our process was to form a climate change advisory body. We did that. Understand state and regional requirements. We've done that. And then go forward and draft a comprehensive plan amendment to include climate change and then start the legislative process. So we're now kind of in this third part of our four-part adoption process. So we've convened the CCCPAC, lots of C's, Climate Change Comprehensive Plan Amendment Committee, made up of a very wonderful mix of interdisciplinary stakeholders. You can see a list of kind of everybody that's been on this panel. We've met about every 2 weeks since I think end of May or mid-May, learning from a wide range of different subject matter experts. And it's been really great to have all of these different voices in the group to provide different kind of perspectives on everything that we're learning. The master builders are going to have very different perspective on things than Harbor Wild Watch. And it's been really interesting to see people discuss these in real time. So as you can see in May, we started with an introduction to climate change and why we would want to address it. At that meeting, we had our stakeholders kind of talk about why it's important for them and their organization to talk about climate change, remediation and mitigation. We then heard from PSRC about regional approaches and data sets that are available. That was really helpful as a framework for the rest of these topics because it helped us understand that there are a lot of data sets and tools already out there, so we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel as we go into this climate change process. Next, we had a kind of more technical topic about building code and energy use, and learned a lot about electrification and what we can do as a city to change our code to be more sustainable. We also 2 weeks ago, we talked about transportation and land use with FutureWise and climate solutions, which a lot of really great stuff there. Transportation and land use are really inextricably tied. So the closer things are together, the less people have to move around, and the more modes of transportation that we have, the less emissions that we have. Then yesterday, we heard from Sarah Fox, who is the climate program manager at the Department of Commerce, about the model climate change element and what might be coming down the road for municipalities that are, planning with under the GMA. They are testing a or I guess piloting a climate change element addition to comprehensive plans. And so they taught us a little bit about what that would look like. And there are sub elements within the climate change element related to resilience and mitigation. So they kind of have they're starting to generate kind of like a menu of goals and policies that folks can pick from. And there are also a couple different ways that they're thinking of for, depending on the resources that jurisdictions may have, there's different ways to approach this work as well. We also heard from Kyla Wilson of Pierce County about waste reduction strategies. And then I gave I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes on effective community engagement. We're here today at council study session for an update. I'm going to take the next couple of weeks to review all of the homework that I've received from the CCCPAC participants. I'll talk about that in a second, and review what we've learned with them and kind of draft up recommendations from the CCCPAC to bring to Planning Commission in September and start this, the legislative process to have climate change goals and policies in our comprehensive plan. Having the climate change goals and policies in our comprehensive plan will allow us to take on more substantial work like a climate action plan, which is part of the council's priorities. Any questions about this timeline? Or anything else? I know I tend to talk kind of quickly. Okay, hearing none. So the CCCPAC, we've been giving them homework. Some folks have had their homework eaten a couple weeks in a row, but I'm still getting a lot of really great feedback from them. So we asked each of the CCCPAC members to send us 2 draft goals or policies related to the prior education session. And so I've been keeping track of those in a spreadsheet that's broken out by comp plan element and kind of sorting all of the different goals and policies by comp plan element and how those could affect the way the city engages with climate change remediation and mitigation. We might not be at a place where we could adopt a whole hog overhaul of the comp plan related to climate change quite yet. We are thinking it might be more prudent to adopt a goal of addressing climate change and working towards the climate action plan. But we got a lot of really, really great feedback from a lot of great people. And then this is a great update you may have all heard, but we were recently awarded over $76,000 from Growth Management Services of the Department of Commerce to pursue this comp plan amendment process. We can use some of that money to reimburse for staff time related to the CCCPAC, conduct public outreach around climate change, and also hire a consultant to conduct or develop this climate action plan. So this is a really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to working with all of you more on this project. All right. Any questions about any of that? Yes, Councilmember Likens.
Yes, I'm not sure if you mentioned this. I saw that the PSRC is doing a climate change workshop that is on August 17th. It was in the most recent AWC newsletter, and it's climate change specifically for comp plan.
That's probably on my calendar.
Okay, yeah.
I know I went to one earlier this year, so.
Yeah, I didn't know if the members that are on that committee might want to join in, because I actually thought of joining in to learn more about it, if people thought that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a great idea too. Excuse me, send that around.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Thank you, Roxy, so much for that great presentation. Really appreciate you being here, and great news on the 76,000. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
So,
all right.
So great.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much for being here.
Take care, everyone. Stay cool.
Thanks. You too. Okay, so we will move right along to our second discussion item, which is our Pierce Transit Trolley update. And this is our Tourism and Communications Director, Laura Pettit. And I think you're muted.
Good afternoon, all. Thanks for having me. I know you've had a chance to look through the memo regarding the past situational analysis of where we're at with the trolley and some of the challenges that we've had, starting with COVID and going through the current operator shortage. We've presented just a bit of information for you to look over, including ridership numbers that we've received from Pierce Transit, as well as the letter we received from their CEO recently regarding the 2020 service cancellation. Due to a shortage of operators, they have not been able to operate in the way that they had in the past. Our Route 100 service has taken the place of 101, which serviced the trolley on an every 30 minutes round. With operator numbers, we are uncertain of the numbers and capacity for Pierce Transit to operate in the same way they had until 2025. This gives us an opportunity maybe to look at long-term strategy with our trolley outreach, and also address maybe some of the concerns also about the wrapped coaches versus the trolleys. We know they are awaiting ADA compliance retrofitting, but haven't been reintroduced to the route, understandably so, through COVID. We are also looking at an increased operation cost and an increased financial contribution from the city. In years past, the estimated amount for operations lay anywhere from $250,000 to $290,000. In the most recent ILA Appendix A modification that we received from Pierce Transit, that operation cost rose to $307,776. The maximum expenditure from the city rose from $49,000 to approximately $62,000. That doesn't account for the potential increase in fare recovery, which used to sit at about $2 a ride from Pierce Transit and could increase anywhere from $225 to $250 a ride. So our operations costs could look much higher. One thing to consider as well is that in the past, the city has not taken on the cost of operations of the trolley. Rather, that financial contribution has gone to buy down the fares in order to provide something that was either 50 cents per ride or $1 all day. So we would be looking at a rise in underwriting that cost. Traditionally, that's been offset by our partners throughout the city, which also operated stops. And that includes Uptown, Heron's Key, the Chamber of Commerce has contributed, as well as two others, which I believe are the Gig Harbor and the Downtown Waterfront Alliance too. So those are some changes as proposed. We are in talks with Pierce Transit on what the future might look like, what they can anticipate, and really at this point, this information is just provided to start a conversation on long-term trolley strategy, long-term partnership strategy, and public transportation.
Any questions from council for Laura? Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, first of all, I don't know if it's happening to anyone else or maybe Robin, that in my area, the internet keeps going in and out, and you keep freezing and I lose half the conversation. But my point with Laura Pettit's comments are, this kind of ties into the comp plan climate change, because they have some, well, I imagine we'll end up with some lofty transportation reduction goals and that kind of thing. But for the last 3 years, it seems like Pierce County Transit has been short on drivers and they can't fill their routes and everything. So I just, since I'm not on that comp plan initiative committee, something should be tied in. I wouldn't want to see us tie ourselves to some kind of promise of some lofty mass transit, public transportation, when we don't have the infrastructure in Pierce County Transit to follow through with it. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Rodenberg. Councilmember Wook.
Yes, going forward, are we still looking at the same partners that we have today? And And do we have any idea what their contribution will be going forward?
For this past year, we were able to confirm, I believe, 4 of the partners. We had not heard back from Gig Harbor for the 2021 or 2022 seasons, but yes, we are looking at the same partners. And we also have to take a look also, I believe Uptown was not on the initial Route 100 route. They did add that stop in this year in order to accommodate the expected trolley routes. So at this point, none of the partners have contributed for 2022 because we don't have a fare buy down service for this year. It didn't make sense with the extended route and the voucher distribution system.
So are we considering what we're doing next year? Is that what this is about?
That is what this is regarding, yes.
And do we know how much
follow.
we're looking, and how much are we looking at from our partners?
If we haven't had donation confirmation slips from our partners for 2023 yet, but if we have the same contribution, we'd be looking at approximately $20,000 in offset cost, and about $12,000 more in fare buy down cost. That doesn't include if they raise the fare to $225 or $250. So that could be another substantial addition.
So we're looking at 32,000 from our partners for a cost of 307,000. Is that what I'm looking at?
No, so the max contribution from the city would be around $62,000 with the new fare recovery rate of 20%. So that $62,000 would be offset by the $20,000 from our partners. So we'd be looking at $42,000 that the city would be liable for.
And 20,000 from our partners. And where does the other 307,000 come from then?
So Pierce Transit underwrites that amount, their operation costs. They also use a fare recovery system. So we cover the amount that the fare that our riders pay doesn't. So that's a volume recovery rate for them. But that total cost of operation is Pierce Transit's.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Rook, as Laura may have mentioned, we also have a draft proposed modification of the ILA with Pierce Transit. Laura has reached out to Pierce Transit to request a meeting within the next 2 weeks with them so that we can figure out these financials in more particular fashion. They kind of gave us a range. It wasn't an exact proposal. And so we want to sit down with them and really figure out, is this the number that you're talking about so that we can plan moving forward for our budget. But it's how we would plan to move forward with this approximate number is to include that in our proposal, in Laura's budget proposal, moving forward to the 2023-2024 year, to assume that we have the funds. And then if necessary, through negotiations with Pierce Transit, it may be above or below that, and we would communicate that back with council.
Great, thank you very much.
I would add into that as well. One of the other considerations that we're bringing to you, council, as well, is that their driver numbers may not recover until 2025. So we may not be looking at service in the way we expect it. And this may be a moot point until 2025. And when we look at the need for public transport options, we'd like to just take a moment and review, what are the perks and the cons of the trolley? Is there a need for greater service? Is there a need for less service? Is there a alternate option? Is there a way to approach public transport in a different way? And is there something that we could do in the interim to perhaps supplement the expectation that we do operate a shuttle that arrives every 30 minutes to our patrons throughout the summer?
Great, thank you. Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you. Laura, given the concern about not having drivers and capacity until maybe 2025, have you guys talked to them about what they're doing in Ruston, that Ruston Runner program where it's on-demand transit? It's a little van, so it's probably requiring a lot different qualifications for staff, and it just circles around the Ruston area up and down the waterfront. That might be something that would be less expensive and might fit our needs. maybe something to talk to them about when you guys meet with them in the next couple weeks. If you Google just Pierce Transit Ruston Runner, then it gives all the information.
Great. Yeah, we have kicked around some alternate options. Haven't come up with anything concrete yet, but trying to find a way to still bring transit to the downtown area, because I know my kids are missing the trolley this summer. They took it all summer last year. So and other kiddos are missing it too. So Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yes, one of your alternatives, did you think about the city buying their own double-decker bus and running their own little route? I bet you could buy a used double-decker bus and have it wrapped really nice.
That
And
would be cool.
Like the Beast Mobile for the Seahawks. Councilmember Likens.
Yes, thanks. I was wondering that if in the future planning, we could consider having like special event shuttles similar to what the art festival did, where because parking is, can be a challenge downtown. Is there a way to just on concert nights, market days, something like that, to do some type of small van like what Ruston does?
That's a good idea. What do you think, Laura?
I think it's all possible.
Okay.
Obviously to look into the logistics of what that would look like, who would operate it, what liability we would have, how people would call it, or if it was just a running route between, Kimball Park and Ride for extra parking in downtown.
Right.
But yeah, that's possible. My initial thought to that would be that if we did it 2 days a week, would there be an expectation that that was there, for people on other days throughout the summer, and what would operation like there?
Yeah, and that would be a conversation maybe to have with the public. The other idea I've also heard of is if you had a volunteer police officer or something, if you could have a small chained off area as a bike garage. I know those are really popular because people have very nice bikes these days that cost as much as, well, what a used car used to cost. And they don't feel good about just locking them up anywhere. And if we're encouraging people not to drive and park, could we do something like that at some of these events? So just thoughts. It's an aside, but just something to put in the back pocket for later. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Wook.
Just a point of information that the art festival used the company Around the Sound for our transportation for parking.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for council, or Laura, anything else you wanted to add?
No, those are all great ideas, and those will inform our conversation with Pierce Transit coming up in the next 2 weeks here. We will update you on the progress of that, and any other information that we hear from Pierce Transit on what their forecast looks like. These are all great ideas. Some of them would take some research on operations cost and feasibility, but we appreciate that. Nothing's impossible.
It's true. That's true. Okay, well, thank you so much for that update, Laura. And I know it'll be exciting when we do have a plan together in place. So if there is nothing else for the good of the order, I think we've hit a record time for a council meeting, 26 minutes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I see a thumbs up to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon. And
All right, thanks.